In 1943, a Spanish fisherman discovered a waterlogged corpse floating off the coast of Huelva. In the dead man's briefcase were classified Allied documents detailing plans for the invasion of Greece. Within days, these papers reached Hitler's desk, causing him to redirect entire armies south. But there was one problem. The corpse was a homeless man from London, dressed as a Royal Marines officer, carrying completely fake invasion plans. This elaborate deception, Operation Mincemeat, saved thousands of lives by convincing Hitler to ignore the real invasion of Sicily. But this was just one move in a shadow war that would determine the fate of nations. Long before armies clashed on battlefields, the real war was already being fought. Not with tanks and planes, but with stolen documents, intercepted messages, and agents operating deep behind enemy lines. These shadow warriors lived in a world where a single mistake meant certain death. For the United States in World War II, that shadow war began at a nondescript office building in New York City. Inside, William Wild Bill Donovan was building America's first organized intelligence agency from scratch. The Office of Strategic Services, OSS, recruited an unlikely army: historians, bankers, baseball players, and even Hollywood directors. Their mission: penetrate Nazi-occupied Europe and turn the tide of war through deception and sabotage. One of their first successes came through Virginia Hall, an American woman with a wooden leg who became known to the Gestapo as the Limping Lady. Operating in occupied France, Hall created vast spy networks, helped downed Allied pilots escape, and coordinated devastating attacks on German supply lines. The Nazis made her their most wanted Allied spy, but they never caught her. The stakes these agents faced were almost unimaginable. In occupied territories, the average life expectancy of a radio operator was just 6 weeks. They worked knowing that a single slip in their cover story, one wrong word in conversation, or even ordering food in an unfamiliar way could expose them. Many carried cyanide pills, choosing death over capture and torture. But it wasn't just individual heroics that made intelligence operations crucial. The OS pioneered psychological warfare on an unprecedented scale. They crafted false newspapers to demoralize enemy troops, spread rumors that undermined Nazi leadership, and even created elaborate fake army units to confuse German intelligence about Allied strength and positions. In Britain, the intelligence war reached even greater sophistication. MI6 ran the double-cross system, turning every single German agent in Britain into a double agent working for the Allies. These turned spies fed Hitler a constant stream of information, much of it false, but just enough truth to maintain credibility. This network became so trusted by German high command that they relied on it for critical strategic decisions. The Soviet Union's intelligence operations were equally formidable. Their spy network, known as the Red Orchestra, penetrated the highest levels of Nazi Germany. One agent, Leopold Trepper, posed as a successful businessman in occupied France, running a network that provided Moscow detailed information about German military movements, including advance warning of Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. Behind enemy lines, these agents lived lives of constant tension. They memorized elaborate cover stories, learned to detect surveillance, and mastered the art of secret communications. Radio operators transmitted messages in brief bursts, knowing that staying on air too long meant certain detection. They used invisible inks, microdots hidden in ordinary letters, and dead drops in locations ranging from hollow trees to loose bricks in cemetery walls. The human cost was staggering. In France alone, half of all agents dropped into occupied territory were eventually captured. The Gestapo's counterintelligence operations were ruthless and efficient. When they captured a resistance radio operator, they often forced them to transmit under torture, trying to lure more agents into traps. Allied intelligence developed special security checks in Morse code transmission. Subtle mistakes that legitimate operators would always make, to indicate if someone was transmitting under duress. The intelligence war wasn't confined to Europe. In the Pacific theater, Native American code talkers became one of America's most valuable secret weapons. The Japanese, despite their skilled cryptographers, never broke the Navajo-based code. Meanwhile, Japanese-American agents from the OSS infiltrated occupied territories throughout Asia, gathering intelligence that proved crucial in the island-hopping campaign. The technological race in intelligence gathering accelerated rapidly. New devices for covert photography appeared. Cameras disguised as cigarette lighters, tie pins, and even buttons. The OS developed silent motors for submarines, allowing agents to slip onto enemy beaches undetected. In Britain, NY6 created explosive rats, special pencils containing hidden maps, and compasses concealed in uniform buttons. Perhaps most remarkably, these intelligence networks created their own secret world, complete with its own language and customs. Dead drops, brush passes, cutouts, honey traps, an entire vocabulary emerged to describe the intricate dance of espionage. Safe houses sprouted across occupied territories, run by ordinary civilians who risked everything to shelter agents. Resistance networks developed elaborate systems of recognition. Specific ways of wearing a scarf or positioning a newspaper that identified fellow operatives. The psychological toll on these agents was immense. Many operated alone for months or years, never knowing whom to trust. They lived with multiple identities, maintaining cover stories so detailed they sometimes began to lose track of their real selves. Some agents reported that after the war, they struggled to remember which memories belonged to their real lives and which to their cover identities. But while Virginia Hall was outrunning the Gestapo in France and the double-cross system was feeding Hitler false intelligence from Britain, another group of spies was pulling off what would become the greatest deception operation in military history. Their mission would make Operation Mincemeat look like a simple magic trick. On June 6, 1944, as Allied forces stormed the beaches of Normandy, German radar operators were tracking a massive fleet approaching Calais, 150 miles to the north. Except this fleet didn't exist. It was an army of ghost ships created by Operation Fortitude, a web of deception so elaborate it convinced Hitler to hold his best divisions back from Normandy for 7 crucial weeks after D-Day. This Phantom Army was the masterwork of the London Controlling Section, a secret organization dedicated to strategic deception. They created an entirely fictional 1st US Army group, complete with rubber tanks, wooden aircraft, and fake radio traffic. From the air or through surveillance, German intelligence saw exactly what they wanted them to see: an invasion force preparing to strike at Calais. The deception went far beyond fake equipment. Double agents sent detailed reports about troop movements that never happened. False documents were planted on bodies that washed ashore. Even General George Patton, whom the Germans considered the Allies' best commander, was placed in charge of this non-existent army, playing his part by making highly visible inspections of the phantom troops. But while Fortitude was dazzling German intelligence with its grand illusions, smaller, deadlier deceptions were being played out across Europe. The British Exec Committee, pronounced double cross, had turned every German agent in Britain into a double agent. These turned spies became master manipulators, feeding Hitler's intelligence services a carefully crafted mixture of truth and lies. Juan Pujol Garcia, codenamed GLRBO, became the star of this deception network. A Spanish hotel clerk with an extraordinary imagination, Pujol had invented an entire network of fictional sub-agents who reported to him. His reports were so valued by German intelligence that they awarded him the Iron Cross. Even as he worked tirelessly for British intelligence, Garbo's fictitious agents became so real to German intelligence that they continued to pay salaries to some of them long after the war ended. The Soviets played an even longer game. Richard Sorge, posing as a Nazi journalist in Tokyo, penetrated the highest levels of both German and Japanese government circles. His intelligence was so precise that he gave Stalin the exact date of Operation Barbarossa, the German invasion of the Soviet Union. Later, he informed Moscow that Japan would not attack the Soviet Union in 1941, allowing Stalin to transfer crucial divisions to defend Moscow against the German advance. But deception wasn't limited to human intelligence. In the deserts of North Africa, British forces under Lieutenant Colonel Dudley Clark created an entire fake army. They constructed dummy tanks from wooden frames and canvas, positioned cardboard artillery pieces, and generated thick clouds of dust to simulate massive troop movements. German reconnaissance pilots reported seeing vast armored columns that were nothing more than elaborate props. The Japanese, too, excelled at deception, particularly in naval operations. Before the attack on Pearl Harbor, they created an elaborate radio deception scheme that convinced American intelligence that their carrier fleet was still in home waters. The real fleet, maintaining strict radio silence, was already steaming toward Hawaii. Yet, for all these grand deceptions, it was often the small, personal betrayals that proved most devastating. Elizabeth Bentley, an American spy for the Soviets, ran a network of agents that penetrated the highest levels of the US government. When she defected to the FBI in 1945, she exposed dozens of Soviet agents and revealed the extent of Soviet penetration into American institutions. The art of deception reached new heights in the cat-and-mouse game of counterintelligence. The Soviets mastered the technique of forcing the move, deliberately revealing lower-level agents to protect more valuable ones. In one operation, they sacrificed 3 junior spies to convince British intelligence they had caught the entire network, while their most important agent continued operating undetected for years. The Germans developed their own sophisticated deception operations. Operation North Pole in the Netherlands succeeded in capturing dozens of Allied agents through a radio game. After capturing Dutch resistance operators, the Germans used their radio equipment to lure more agents into a trap, continuing this deception for nearly 2 years. Despite the agents using security checks in their messages, German operators became so skilled at mimicking their communication styles that London failed to detect the deception. The human element in these deceptions was often the most crucial and the most unpredictable. Duško Popov, a Yugoslav playboy recruited by German intelligence, became one of Britain's most effective double agents under the codename Tri Sicily. His natural charm and elaborate lifestyle made him so convincing that his German handlers never questioned his loyalty, even as he fed them carefully crafted misinformation about Allied plans. Intelligence agencies learned that the best deceptions were based on what the enemy already believed. They didn't try to change minds, but rather reinforced existing prejudices and expectations. This understanding led to operations of incredible subtlety, where the truth was hidden not behind lies, but behind careful selections of fact that led the enemy to draw exactly the wrong conclusions. But while these masters of deception were spinning their webs of carefully crafted lies, another group of intelligence operatives was fighting a different kind of battle, one that would prove even more crucial to the Allied victory. At a Victorian mansion in the English countryside, an unlikely team of mathematicians and cryptanalysts was about to change the course of the war. At Bletchley Park, a Victorian mansion 50 miles north of London, Alan Turing stared at the jumble of letters on his desk. These intercepted German messages held critical intelligence about U-boat movements in the Atlantic. But they were encrypted using the infamous Enigma machine, a device the Nazis believed created unbreakable codes. The Germans were wrong. The breaking of Enigma began not with Turing, but with 3 Polish mathematicians who had partially cracked the system before the war. When Poland fell, they escaped to Britain with their knowledge and a reconstructed Enigma machine. But by 1941, the Germans had made Enigma far more complex, adding additional rotors and increasing the number of possible combinations to 159 quintillion settings. That's 159 followed by 18 zeros. Turing and his team faced an impossible task. The Germans changed Enigma's settings every 24 hours at midnight. Each morning, thousands of intercepted messages would arrive at Bletchley Park. The codebreakers had to break that day's settings before the intelligence became useless. And they had to do it every single day. The solution came in the form of the Bomb B, a massive electromechanical machine designed by Turing that could test possible Enigma settings at high speed. But even with this technology, breaking the daily codes required incredible intuition and luck. The codebreakers looked for patterns, common phrases, weather reports, anything that might give them a starting point. Success often came from German sloppiness. Messages sent at exactly the same time with identical settings could be compared. Weather reports were sent daily in a standard format. Some operators would use their girlfriends' names as passwords. Each tiny mistake gave the codebreakers another thread to pull. The human cost was enormous. The codebreakers worked in shifts around the clock, their minds pushed to the breaking point by the relentless pressure. They couldn't tell anyone about their work, not family, not friends, not even other sections at Bletchley Park. Some had breakdowns. Others developed obsessive behaviors, seeing patterns everywhere they looked. But the intelligence they produced, codenamed Huelva, was worth every sacrifice. When convoys sailed from North America to Britain carrying vital supplies, Huelva intercepts revealed the positions of German U-boat wolfbacks waiting to attack. When Rommel's Africa Corps advanced across the desert, Huelva told Allied commanders exactly where his fuel and ammunition would run out. The Germans never believed Enigma could be broken. They investigated leaks, changed procedures, even accused their Italian allies of betrayal. But they never suspected their perfect encryption machine had been compromised. This overconfidence proved fatal. By 1943, Bletchley Park was reading some German messages faster than their intended recipients. Parallel to Enigma, another code-breaking effort targeted Japanese diplomatic and military communications. American cryptanalysts in Arlington, Virginia, cracked the Japanese diplomatic code, codenamed Pure, giving Allied leaders unprecedented insight into Japan's diplomatic moves. This intelligence proved crucial in shaping America's strategy in the Pacific theater. The race to break enemy codes extended far beyond Enigma. The Japanese military used a complex code machine called Pure for their diplomatic communications, and a series of other systems known collectively as JN codes for military operations. American codebreakers, working in a secret facility known as the Dungeon, achieved remarkable success against these systems. One of the most significant breakthroughs came with Gen 25, the main Japanese naval code. By early 1942, American cryptanalysts could read enough of these messages to predict the Japanese attack on Midway. This intelligence allowed Admiral Chester Nimitz to set a trap that would change the course of the Pacific War, destroying 4 Japanese aircraft carriers in a single battle. The codebreakers' work required incredible attention to detail. They tracked the habits of individual radio operators, noting their distinctive styles of sending Morse code, their fists. They analyzed message patterns, frequencies, and even the times messages were sent. Every scrap of information could provide the crucial clue needed to break a code. At Bletchley Park, the operation grew to industrial scale. Over 10,000 people worked there by 1945, most of them women. They operated the bombs, processed decoded messages, and maintained the complex card index systems that tracked every detail of intercepted communications. The site became a small city with its own housing, social clubs, and even a theater, all operating under absolute secrecy. The pressure of maintaining that secrecy was immense. Workers were forbidden from discussing their work with anyone, even their colleagues in different huts at Bletchley. They developed their own coded language to talk about their work in public. Many carried this secrecy to their graves, never telling even their families about their crucial role in winning the war. Beyond Enigma and PRPL, there were thousands of other codes and ciphers to break. The Germans used different systems for their army, air force, and secret services. The Japanese had separate codes for their army and navy. Each breakthrough required different techniques, different machines, and different kinds of thinking. But while these massive code-breaking operations were underway, an even more secretive intelligence war was brewing. As World War II drew to a close, former allies were already positioning themselves for a new kind of conflict. One where the battle around would be divided Berlin, and the weapons would be secrets stolen from the atomic labs of America. On a cold February morning in 1950, a Soviet cipher clerk named Igor Gazinko walked into the Royal Canadian Mounted Police headquarters carrying 109 documents. These papers revealed something that would shock the Western world. The Soviets had penetrated the Manhattan Project, stealing atomic secrets from under the noses of American security. The nuclear espionage case exposed by Gazinko was just the opening move in what would become a decades-long intelligence chess game. In the divided city of Berlin, This shadow war played out in elaborate operations that seemed more like fiction than reality. The CIA and KGB transformed Berlin into a playground of espionage. Both sides dug tunnels under the Berlin Wall to tap communication lines. Operation Gold, a joint CIA MI6 venture, spent millions digging a 1,476-foot tunnel to tap Soviet military telephone cables. The operation worked for nearly a year before its discovery. But what the Americans didn't know was that Soviet intelligence had known about the tunnel from its inception, thanks to a British double agent named George Blake. The stakes in this intelligence war were unprecedented. The smallest leak could shift the balance of nuclear deterrence. The slightest mistake could trigger World War II. Both sides recruited deeply placed agents who would become legendary in the intelligence world. Colonel Oleg Penkovsky, codenamed Hero, became one of the CIA's most valuable assets inside Soviet military intelligence. His information about Soviet missile capabilities during the Cuban Missile Crisis helped Kennedy make crucial decisions that prevented nuclear war. But Penkovsky's eventual capture and execution demonstrated the terrible price of Cold War espionage. Meanwhile, the KGB ran its own masterful operations. The Cambridge Five, Kim Philby, Donald MacLean, Guy Burgess, Anthony Blunt, and John Cancross penetrated the highest levels of British intelligence. Philby, who nearly became head of MI6, passed thousands of classified documents to Moscow before his eventual exposure and defection. The methods of espionage evolved with technology. Both sides developed sophisticated surveillance equipment, dead-drop systems, and encoding methods. The CIA created miniature cameras, hidden listening devices, and even considered using cats fitted with microphones for eavesdropping operations. But while the technical game advanced, human intelligence remained crucial. The Berlin Wall itself became a symbol of both division and connection, a concrete barrier pierced by intelligence operations running in both directions. Agents used fake documents, disguises, and elaborate cover stories to cross between East and West. The psychological warfare between the CIA and KGB reached unprecedented levels. Both agencies mastered the art of active measures, disinformation campaigns designed to destabilize the enemy from within. The Soviets spread rumors about AIDS being created in US military labs. The CIA funded abstract art exhibitions and jazz concerts to promote Western values of freedom and expression. Berlin became a city of shadows, where every casual encounter could be a planned intelligence operation. Restaurants, bars, and cafes served as meeting points for agents and their handlers. The famous Café Adler, overlooking Checkpoint Charlie, became known as the Spy Café, where intelligence officers from both sides would watch each other while pretending not to. The human drama of Cold War espionage often reached tragic proportions. In 1961, Soviet intelligence officer Boban Stashinsky defected to the West, revealing his role in 2 assassinations using a specialized poison gas gun. His confession exposed the KGB's Department 13, dedicated to sabotage and assassination, but also highlighted the personal toll of espionage. Stashinsky had fallen in love with a Western woman and could no longer bear the weight of his actions. The training of Cold War spies reached new levels of sophistication. The CIA's training facility, known as the Farm, taught everything from lockpicking to resistance to interrogation. The KGB's training program was equally rigorous, with agents spending years preparing for deep cover assignments in the West. They studied not just language but minute cultural details, how Americans held their cigarettes, which hand Europeans used to hold their forks. But perhaps the most dangerous game was played by the illegals, deep cover agents living for decades under false identities. The Soviets excelled at this practice, placing agents so deeply embedded in Western society that some of their children didn't know their parents' true identities. These agents lived in a perpetual state of vigilance, maintaining their cover stories even in their sleep. Behind the scenes, another kind of intelligence operation was taking shape, one that would transform espionage forever. In nondescript buildings across the United States and Soviet Union, scientists and engineers were developing the first computer systems capable of processing vast amounts of intercepted communications. The digital age of espionage was dawning, The fall of the Berlin Wall didn't end espionage, it transformed it. As the dust settled from the Cold War, intelligence agencies found themselves in a world where the battleground had shifted from physical borders to digital networks. The spies of today don't need to hide microfilm in hollow coins. They can steal more secrets with a single keystroke than their Cold War predecessors could in years. Yet human intelligence remains crucial. In 2010, the FBI arrested 10 Russian illegals living seemingly normal American lives. These deep-cover agents had spent decades building their identities, raising families, and integrating into American society. Their arrest revealed that the old methods of espionage hadn't died, they'd evolved alongside the new. The digital revolution has created unprecedented opportunities for intelligence gathering. The NSA's PRISM program, revealed by Edward Snowden, showed how modern surveillance can collect vast amounts of data. But this digital expansion has also created new vulnerabilities. In 2015, Chinese hackers stole 21.5 million personal records from the US Office of Personnel Management, including detailed background checks for intelligence officers. Modern spycraft blends traditional tradecraft with cutting-edge technology. Intelligence officers still meet assets in person, but now they carry smartphones that can detect surveillance and encrypt communications. Dead drops have gone digital. Spies can now transfer data through innocuous-looking social media posts or online game chats. The rise of cyber espionage has blurred the lines between state actors and private entities. Nations now recruit hackers and maintain cyber warfare units. The 2016 hack of the Democratic National Committee showed how digital espionage could influence elections. The attack on Iran's nuclear program using the Stuxnet virus demonstrated how cyber weapons could cause physical damage. The challenges of modern intelligence gathering are immense. Agencies must sift through an ocean of digital data while maintaining human intelligence networks. They face sophisticated counterintelligence operations that use artificial intelligence to detect patterns in agent behavior. The speed of modern communications means that secrets have a shorter shelf life than ever before. But while the methods have changed, the fundamental nature of espionage remains the same. It's still a game of human psychology, patience, and calculated risk. The spies of today, like their predecessors, live in a world where a single mistake can expose years of careful work. The stakes have never been higher. Modern intelligence agencies face threats ranging from nuclear proliferation to terrorist networks, from economic espionage to election interference. The challenge isn't just gathering intelligence, it's separating crucial information from the noise of global data traffic. China has emerged as a formidable player in modern espionage, blending traditional human intelligence with cutting-edge technology. Their thousand grains of sand approach uses large numbers of collectors to gather seemingly insignificant pieces of information that, when combined, reveal valuable intelligence. This strategy has resulted in the theft of everything from military secrets to commercial technologies. The private sector has become a new frontline in espionage. Corporate spies target trade secrets and intellectual property, while security firms hire former intelligence officers to protect against such threats. The line between national security and economic interests has become increasingly blurred. Intelligence agencies must also contend with the rise of hacktivists and non-state actors. Groups like Anonymous and WikiLeaks have demonstrated that small organizations can expose state secrets on a massive scale. This democratization of intelligence has forced agencies to adapt their methods and rethink their security protocols. The future of espionage points toward even greater integration of human and technological elements. Artificial intelligence will help process vast amounts of data, while quantum computing threatens to break current encryption methods. Yet the core skills of espionage, building trust, manipulating human psychology, and protecting secrets, remain as vital as they were when that waterlogged corpse washed up on a Spanish beach in 1943, carrying its cargo of carefully crafted lies. Perhaps most concerning is the emergence of deepfake technology that can create convincing false video and audio recordings. Intelligence agencies must now verify not just the content of information, but whether the people in their surveillance footage actually exist. This technology threatens to make the old spy maxim "seeing is believing" obsolete. The lessons learned from a century of espionage operations, from that corpse off the Spanish coast to today's cyber warriors, remind us that while technology changes, human nature remains constant. Deception, betrayal, and the eternal chess game between spy and counterspy continue. The only difference is the stakes grow higher with each passing year. If you love military history like I do, subscribe for more content like this.